Hi, I'm Melissa Withers, Managing Partner of RevUp Capital, and today I'm talking about things to look for when evaluating a revenue-based deal. Let's start with this. RBF for startups comes in so many different flavors, so beware sweeping generalizations. For example, it's easy to say that revenue-based investing is non-dilutive. Some of us are. But this generalization ignores a huge category of well-known funds with deals that combine revenue and equity. There's incredible variation across deals, and that's a good thing. It means that you can find a deal that is customized to your needs. But all this variation makes evaluating deals and the differences between them real work worth real effort. The good news, there are a few things common across many of the deals out there today, and I'm going to do my best to lay that out for you right now. So let's take it from the top, the revenue contract. Most RBF investments include what's called a revenue contract. A revenue contract outlines how much money you will receive and how you will return that money back over time. The terms you negotiate with your investor will drive how that contract applies to your business. And while there's no single template for a revenue contract, there are a few common terms worth zeroing in on. Number one, the total return. The most obvious thing to evaluate in a deal is the total amount you'll be expected to return in exchange for whatever investment you receive. This return is often defined as a multiple of that investment. So a few things to consider about a return multiple. Is this a fixed or variable return? And if it's variable, what is the maximum amount you could ever be expected to pay back? This is often referred to as the cap. Are there situations when the return multiple or the cap changes? Can it increase or even decrease based on your performance? Or does it change if you violate the contract? The answers to these questions vary from fund to fund, but they should be crystal clear in your documentation. If they're not, this is a red flag for sure. Number two, the percent of revenue to be returned. Most revenue contracts establish a percentage of revenue that will be returned at some frequency until the contract is done. In some models, it may be a fixed percentage all the way through. In others, it may be a small percentage that gradually gets larger over time, or the percentage may vary based on your company's actual performance. When choosing between these options, there are trade-offs, and no variant is inherently good or bad, but you would plan really differently around each one. If this part of a deal seems super complex, I'd say proceed with caution. It's one thing to have performance-based returns, but generally speaking, you want this to be stable enough that you can predict and effectively plan around it. If it's too kooky, founder beware. Number three, revenue definition. One of the most important things in a revenue contract is how revenue is defined. Is it total or gross revenue? Is it revenue minus COGS? Or is revenue defined as gross profit? These are big differences with big implications. Even at RevUp, we have different definitions for different kinds of companies. If you're a physical product company, our revenue contract may only apply to revenue minus COGS, but that's probably not the case if you're a software company. Again, there's no good or bad definition of revenue. There are just consequences that you really want to be aware of. Number four, return mechanics. How do you return revenue to your investor? Some revenue-based investors take returns right at the moment that revenue comes into your business. Others expect returns on a monthly, quarterly, or even annual basis. And beyond frequency, you need to understand how these returns are processed. Are returns automatically taken out of your bank account? Or is it a manual process where you review and authorize each submission? And what about these hybrid deals that combine revenue and equity together? Some of these deals use a revenue contract until there is a conversion event. In these scenarios, the revenue contract may convert to equity when a company raises a certain amount of money. Well, how much equity does it convert into? And is that amount reduced by what you've already returned through the revenue contract? Do you have to convert to equity, or can you keep the revenue contract? What if you don't like this investor and you don't want them on your cap table for forever? What if someone buys your company? What happens to the agreement? Or what if you simply want to complete the contract ahead of schedule? Is that allowable? Or can another investor buy it out? I can tell you from direct experience that there's no single deal structure for all of these scenarios. The biggest red flags are the deals that don't tackle these things directly with transparency and clarity. Number five, covenants and restrictions. As with any kind of investment, it's important to dig into what penalties or restrictions are included in the deal. It's not uncommon for revenue-based deals to have clauses and covenants that affect reporting, taking board seats, and what are the rules around taking on future capital. Just take revenue reporting, for example. How do you report your revenue? Is it something that you do manually, or does your investor monitor your financial data in real time? Are there auditing requirements, and what circumstances might trigger this? And who pays for an audit, should you need one? But most important, are there subordination requirements that affect how you utilize other forms of capital? This stuff is important, and I can tell you that the deals out there today all have their own way of dealing with these things. Read the fine print. And finally, one more feature to pay attention to, number 6, the doomsday directives. I'm just kidding, nobody calls it this, but we could. Things often don't go as planned. So never take money from anyone without insight into how they will react to bad news. This is an area where revenue deals really vary from fund to fund. I've seen deals that hold a company accountable to whatever growth projections they had when the deal was signed. And if they fail to hit those projections, there are real consequences. But what if you skip a return period and you just don't pay? What happens? The consequences could increase the total amount that you need to return. But really, understanding what happens when things don't go as planned isn't just about avoiding penalties. Sometimes it's about preserving optionality. What are your options if you have a bumpy quarter and you just need to use all of your revenue to continue investing into growth? Does your investor give you any flexibility here? Good early stage investors know that it's in nobody's best interest to overpenalize a company for hitting a rough spot. So my favorite deals have ways for investors and founders to navigate the unexpected and balance obligation with opportunity. So there you have it, 6 common RBF deal features worth getting to know. And I'll end where I started. Revenue-based investing for early-stage companies is not one size fits all, far from it. So read carefully, understand the details, and most of all, make sure you have a strong handle on your own data, your unit economics, your capital needs, your cash flow management. Even the gentlest of RBF deals will be uncomfortable if you cut corners here, so just don't do it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.